We're joined by Francesco Rizzuto. He is a professor of European law at Liverpool Hope University. Professor, thank you so much for your time. At the end there, our correspondent and host, Enda Brady, talked about the EU reciprocating if Trump were to impose tariffs. But we've been told time and time again by economics professionals, that if he were to impose tariffs, consumers in the US would pay for those. So why would the EU reciprocate?
I think that this is wishful thinking on the part of Europeans. It really is. I think it's about time they woke up to the fact that wishful thinking as to whether he's going to follow through or not is really not the way to deal with this. Trump's strategy is pretty clear, and I think perhaps the billionaires in Davos understood it more clearly yesterday than perhaps some of Europe's political leaders. Trump is essentially saying, do what I want or else, first. Secondly, I'm going to suck the lifeblood out of Europe by simply undercutting you, taxation rates or tariffs. So I don't actually think that these fine discussions over, well, if you do this, your people are going to suffer. Well, actually, he's already taken measures in the United States, though that may not actually happen as successfully as he hopes, by, drill oil, let's lower the price of oil. He's putting pressure on Saudi Arabia to do that so that he keeps inflationary pressures down in the US. So, I think our political leaders need to wise up. When I talk about our political leaders, I'm talking about, of course, those in Europe, including those in the United Kingdom, that think that the best way of dealing with Trump is to flatter him by making statements like the minister in Davos yesterday from the UK saying that, we need to take a leaf out of his playbook, basically.
You essentially have President Trump threatening world leaders, Mexico, Canada, Europe,
Yes.
China. Do you think there is good cause for any type of response to him? Do you think if leaders were to, I don't want to use the word ignore, but if they were to ignore his threats, would he calm down?
No, they can't ignore. No, world leaders cannot ignore his threats. And certainly, I think that he has a point when he talks about globalization and relations with China, to give you an example, have not exactly been fair in terms of trade, perhaps even with Europe. However, if you remember, I hope you never had the experience at school, how did you deal with bullies? You have to stand up to them. Otherwise, they would win. I know that in international politics and international trade relations, things are slightly more complex than that. But I really think that it's not the response from Europe in particular, and that's my primary concern, has to be that we essentially need to ensure that we give ourselves the economic and military means to not be susceptible to these kinds of threats. I mean, I feel really very sorry for the Mexicans and the Canadians who live next door to him, actually. I think that, frankly, nobody must buckle to his threats. He essentially wants to ensure that the United States, and he will try and suck the energy out of all these economies to make America great again. Now, America is great because it was actually trading with the rest of the world, but he doesn't see the world in that way. And one thing that we must also remember is that his alliance with social media means that he's also able to shape through his alliances, let us say, with social media, people's perceptions and the way they're shaped. So I think that people must not underestimate or take their hopes for reality when it comes to Trump. Trump is actually not unpredictable. He's very predictable in terms of what he says. The question of whether he can achieve what he says, that's a separate question. But the idea that he's inconsistent, temperamental, no. I think his approach to world affairs is fairly clear.
Professor, just 4 days after his inauguration, there's so much global chaos concerning how to interpret the president. We appreciate speaking with you, Professor Rizzuto. Thank you so much for your time.